This is going to be something different from Gemini Connect, but it will be a tribute to one of our favorite YouTubers, Bold and Bankrupt.
So we're here at the Northern States Park, which is a former hospital that has now been turned into a state park. But it has a lot of the older buildings that we're going to go and explore.
So this was actually a mental hospital, you said? Or was it a hospital?
It was a hospital, and apparently these structures date back to as early as 1909, and it was a functioning state hospital up until, I believe, the 70s. 1970s they closed it down, and in 1990 Skagit Valley County actually purchased these buildings and turned it into a state park.
So it is obviously structurally unsafe, but I wouldn't let that deter me. Like I said, that's how we grow up, and this place is completely full of broken glass, so yeah, a little bit hazardous.
It's interesting that they've left it like this. It is technically a state park, and yeah, wow, the structures are still very much intact.
Yeah, this looks like a ward.
I think I've ever seen in like the States.
Yeah, this is quite interesting because there aren't that many ruins in the USA.
Look at even the ceiling.
Yeah, interesting ceilings here too.
I guess it should be mentioned that we're not doing 100% Bald and Bankrupt because I'm doing a lot of B-roll and photos because that's our style.
Exactly, we are shooters, and if you do wonder how did an Eastern European and a Korean girl from Hawaii end up together, it is because we both love shooting and traveling, and that is the premise under which we met, and that is what we keep doing 7 years later. So yes, our style is a lot more photographic and cinematic than your average vlogger out there.
I'm your girl.
Okay. Oh boy.
Girls.
And I don't know if you have explored many abandoned buildings.
I grew up on an island, so no.
And it's like a vacation island.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't grow up in the touristy spot, but no, I mean, there's nothing abandoned. But you always see the movies, you always want to do it, but I never was in a particular area to do that, so this is very intriguing for me. I've never done anything like this before.
This is second nature for me.
Cool. I love this.
All right, let's continue. But a little bit about here in Western Washington. What you see here, I think they had to do something with Asylum for the mentally challenged. And this reminds me of the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is actually based on a mental asylum in Washington state. And I think it has to do with some of the horror stories that you hear about the asylums of that era. There's a famous story in particular Kurt Cobain wrote a song about, where I think it's called something like Frances Will Have Her Revenge on Seattle. And it's about an actress who was attractive and famous, and it sounded like her mother and the neighbors conspired and had her locked up in a mental asylum way back. And the mental asylum completely destroyed her with really barbaric methods of supposedly healing people. So in the West, in America, and in this state, very much the asylums got a terrible reputation, and a lot of them got shut down. And this led to a whole bunch of problems where now there actually aren't places where these people that need the help can get it.
We're seeing that on the streets of Seattle right now.
Exactly. Yeah. It's actually why we have a massive homeless problem, and actually clinically mentally ill people are on the streets with nobody to help them and no place to go, because all these places like this were shut down and abandoned. The other thing to mention is we are in Western Washington, and I honestly think this is one of the worst places to be mentally ill because of the weather. It's a very messed up, long, dreary winter, and you can see the sky in this direction there, how it's darkening. That is pretty much the sky of that color for months at a time. And if you're stuck in a place like this with already a mental illness, and you have to look at the sky and you have nothing to do, this will really destroy you mentally and physically. However, you were telling me that here they had occupations, right?
I mean, yeah, it was a working farm. So obviously farms need laborers, and so my understanding is that back in the day they did employ a lot of those people, or at least gave them jobs, so that even though they were here at the hospital, they had a purpose. And I think that's just, you know, something that every human needs, is they need a purpose, something to keep them going, especially if you're mentally ill.
That's
so
right.
I think that that actually was a very good thing, and it's really sad that it's not continuing, at least in this form here.
Here was some kind of ward, I'm guessing. It's a very big, long building. It's being cleaned out, so we can't quite tell how it was used. But, and you were saying it's a working farm, so maybe some of these were actually farm facilities.
I'm sure they were. Like, these structures are giant. This is maybe, I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know anything about farms, but maybe like cows.
Yeah, and it has the cement here where animals could have fed or drank water.
I wouldn't be surprised if this was for animals at some point.
Yeah, so it seems like patients here were able to work on a farm and this way not be idle, and we know idleness destroys human minds. That there looks like a silo for grain to me, so yeah, more along the lines that this was a working farm for people to work on. It was sort of self-sustained, you know, the idea was that it actually makes money and makes food and so on, that these people aren't exactly a burden on society, but they can sustain themselves and feel like they have a purpose in life.
It's so cool for photos.
Yes, there's a million photos.
I love it.
Susie has a photo problem where if I don't keep an eye on her, she takes like 100 photos and maxes the card, so I need to watch.
I filled up 2 64 gig cards yesterday. Sorry.
Terrible. It's another huge building here. Oh, and a big silo. Interesting. This one is cool. So it's a big silo looking building here.
Oh, are you gonna? Okay, yeah, I will shoot some.
So inevitably I have to climb this.
You're gonna go all the way up?
Yeah, I think I can. Alright, so I'm gonna try to climb this. It looks rather sturdy actually. It is rusty, but it's very strong. Alright.
Oh, whoa. Holy cow, that's cool. See, this is why a team thing works for us, because I would never do this.
I am climbing with the GoPro in my hand and still using it to grab. It's pretty high now.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. But very cool. I'm glad you're doing it, not me.
You're not allowed to do this.
Nope.
You didn't grow up like a gopnik.
I'm not the gopnik.
No platform to stand up here. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. I can see it all from above now. Here we go. The abandoned hospital in Sedro-Wooley. Here's a big something. Whatever platform there was here is missing at this point, so I have no way of getting out and shooting from here. But I'll continue down now. Almost there. All right, this is what I just climbed. All right, let's see. There's more buildings. Thoroughly emptied out. Nature is beginning to reclaim this place. Growing, and it always blows my mind whenever I'm in abandoned buildings how quickly nature reclaims them, because you know, you think they're gonna last 100 years, 200 years, centuries. Actually, as soon as you stop maintaining them, the clock starts ticking and nature eats them up completely. Especially here in Western Washington, where the nature is pretty much a rainforest and it just immediately creeps up and starts taking over. So it's really interesting if you look at the abandoned buildings and you see how here there's a big hole and you can look more, there's more there, and what happens is certain places just give out. They are like the weak spot, you know, it's like a chain has a weak link or something like that, and once that breaks, the entire structural integrity of the building is compromised from then on, and that's how the whole thing starts unraveling, and from then on is basically doomed, where if you don't fix up that break, you will end up with a collapse eventually, and then nature will grow over it. That's how this process goes. It's almost like an organism where you know, if you break a leg or if one of your organs fails, the whole fails. And this is what's happening here. The weak spots have fallen through, and after them follows a big collapse eventually. It doesn't go all at once, you know. See here, the corner is missing, and so on. It's how it goes. How the nature is starting to bust through the concrete, and soon there will be nothing left from this concrete. The roots from underneath will kill it and turn it into rubble basically, and then it will be covered up by dirt, and it will be a ruin in which future archaeologists will be digging. So how's your first abandoned building exploration?
This is so much fun, especially if you're a photographer. This is just great. There's like something that's really interesting about decay. It's just like, this is cool.
Yeah, see this?
Wow.
This is very textured. It's on its way to collapse. And some graffiti. I think it's just a shed.
Oh. Oh no.
Here the blackberry is starting to climb the roof, eventually to collapse it under its weight.
Textures, and you're right, just how nature comes back and like overtakes it.
Yeah.
It also gives you that sense of, you know, we're being humans, like nature still wins in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that is a good point. I, for one, have absolutely no fear that humans will be damaging nature too much, because
nature bounces back.
Yeah, and we're so fragile. Our civilization is so fragile. Here the roof completely collapsed. This was an electric room. The electric installation is made of metal, so it survives longer than the rest, but the texture in here are totally wild actually. I love how the paint cracked right here. This is awesome. And there are layers and layers of different paints and textures peeling now, as well as the rubble here falling on the metal, glass pieces, rust. It's actually pretty beautiful in here. What happens to everything humanity does when it is not maintained, even just for a few decades. This place, I think, was shut down in the 70s and let fall into ruin in the following decades, so it's not that old of a ruin. Here nature again starts to grow right through the roof or to the floor. I think it's just in the rubble, seeds fell, and now plants have taken hold of it. And so it goes. The more it keeps raining here with no roof, the more everything rots, the more microorganisms chew through it, and more organisms like plants take it. Soon animals will come live in these plants, and you have a full cycle. Nature makes its return several decades after humans let it go. Wow, I need to watch my step. This is exactly how I got a nail through my heel when I was a kid, climbing on such planks with nails sticking out of them. And if you look, every piece of wood has a million nails on it here. Yep, even high and low. There's like nails lining this hole.
Wow, look at up top. What is that?
I don't know. There are nails right here. It looks like fish bones, but it's like
It's so cool. Wow. Interesting. This is way more cool than I thought it would.
So I think it's more machinery. Wow, what is this? I actually have no clue. It looks like water heaters, but it obviously isn't.
I would guess this is for like dairy or something.
Yeah, it looks like dairy.
Yeah, I would totally guess dairy.
Yeah, so picking up the pieces, this is starting to look like a dairy farm. Because we had space for cows, and now we have this machinery where it looks like milk was being stirred or stored or both. Ah, there we go. Big Dutchman, Division US Industries Inc. And it's a timer, and it says Trickle-matic. So it does point at dairy. Very interesting. So it's an abandoned, probably, cow milking installation here. And God knows what that is. You enjoying some of this graffiti here?
Glory hole. Oh Oh man, that's rough. That's,
I wouldn't
Nope.
go for this one.
Nope.
Ooh,
gee.
looks a bit more like something else than a glory hole.
Actually, that'd be a really cool shot. Let me.
I'm not doing it.
You can stand on the other side.
No.
No, I mean, no, not for that. Gosh.
Oh my god. It's the easiest or most terrible way to get tetanus ever right here. Part of what is really cool is when you find abandoned buildings is taking a look at all the crazy textures that become revealed once everything collapsed. Like, look at this. Where will you ever see otherwise such textures? It's quite crazy. Here's what these patients were up to here. They were making food and canning it right here in the food processing plant, which is another group of buildings right here we can check out right now by the numbers. 1930s, the Northwest Hospital Farm produced over 2-year period an average of 1,400,000 pounds of vegetables and 80,000 pounds of berries. With recently completed cannery, could can 12,510 cans of fruit. Serious operation here by the patients.
They were actually doing a lot. That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
I really like that.
Right here the berries remain long after the hospital. I like how the vine just came into here. This is crazy. It's like Indiana Jones shit.
Yeah, right?
Look at that.
This thing like collapsed back here, but
Yeah.
pretty interesting.
Wow. Indiana Jones from Washington State. Did you decipher another masterpiece?
Yeah.
She's looking through runes and
I know, right? I'm trying to be like, what are they trying to tell us? Kanye West likes fingers in his...
here you see them. The berries are now taking over the hospital. They used to pick them and can them, and now
Berries are getting their revenge.
yes, this is the revenge of the berries.
Revenge of the blackberries.
Blackberry revenge against the farm. Now the blackberries taking over, ruling everything. Some machine right here.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
The blackberry bush reviews. A machine inside. Crazy, man. Ripe berries, I would eat them, but they've been around debris the whole time, and my hands are now all rusty from the ladder. Alright, this looks pretty decrepit, but I'll give it a go. Ooh, it's like the Illuminati in here. Illuminati confirmed, yeah.
Oh boy. In a ruin.
And the door says don't enter, and there's a shattered toilet on the ground. That room is pretty iconic. Illuminati, a shattered toilet.
The man. They are always... Oh my god, it is totally the Illuminati.
Yeah, and it says the man.
First, and I saw that one.
Where does it say the
His
man?
palace.
Peace Palace.
Right
Oh, they spray painted some cable to look like a coral snake almost. Clever. Oh, there we go. Finally we find the expression of most likely someone Slavic. And there's one more right next to you here. Oh shit. Oh, it has my ass.
Yeah, it does. I'm not going that way.
Oh,
You okay?
how do I get it out? I don't see that way.
Just pull it straight back. Yep.
There. You have to go not against the grain of the thorns, otherwise it will rip your clothes. Yet another abandoned building. This one in the woods. We've been walking through, and the woods are actually beautiful in this area. The whole setting for this farm. If you peek over here, you will see that this quickly becomes a lush northwestern forest, which is usually impassable. And the last structure we found is right here on the edge of the forest. Here we go, some big machine. This might be the most sophisticated machinery we've seen so far. A little bit dark here and a lot of glass shards. And something mechanical and electrical. Revolving parts here. Some kind of cylinder with many tubes. And it's like a furnace. Yeah, it's a type of furnace for sure. But exactly what it powers up here, heat or electricity, something like that. There's some scratched off paint in the year 2000. Previous explorers who probably met a terrible end. Wow, okay. Good thing I'm not very large. Wow, barely squeezed through here. You think you wanna chance it? Vines dropping from the roof like a tropical ruin. This is one of the things about the Northwest. It will become a rainforest immediately as humans let go of it. Wow, this is the coolest building. And the blackberry is encroaching from every direction. This is the craziest part. It's hanging from the roof. It has broken through where used to be roof tiles. And now it's coming in from the roof. Very soon it will undermine everything here and there'll be nothing left. This one is my favorite so far. Here you can see how the blackberries completely took down the roof and are now invading the building wholesale. The whole thing is getting invaded and the vines are now stretching along the ground floor. Serious jungle here.
Very cool.
This is my favorite building so far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
And here we end our tour of the abandoned structures in this hospital in the Northwest.
Yeah, so this is the last structure. It was actually one of our favorite structures, and it is surrounded by these berry bushes that have tons of berries on them.
Yeah, which was the food that they were making here. Quite interesting. Now it all belongs to the berries. And we're signing off here.
Yep, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.